Okay guys, so today I'm going to be touching on a topic which is pretty big in the car community, and something that people who are working on cars and engines and people that are experienced on them can never agree on, and that's, are eBay turbochargers any good? And for a straight answer, it depends. So I'm going to try and explain in this video how exactly you can identify and how you can tell, and give you a pretty rough basis on what to choose from. But down to it, it's really superstitious. It's what your own belief is. So for instance, with me, I've run an eBay Turbo on my car for more than a year now, hammering the shit out of it, and it's been fine. Mind you, I've only been making 7 pounds of boost with it. Oh, 7 or 8. I don't really know, but yeah, I've had good luck with them, so I'm going to continue using them until I have a bad experience, but I'm going to see, yeah. So, this is not an eBay Turbo. This is a GT1752S off a Nissan Patrol. This is the OEM turbo that comes with them, GT, it's a Garrett Turbo. And this one took a shit on me. It's had tons of shaft play on the actual shaft that goes through the center of the turbo, connects the compressor with the turbine wheel. And yeah, so I've pulled this one off and I've bought this new turbo off eBay. So this again is the same one, a GT1752S. However, this one has a billet compressor wheel. So I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but if I zoom in there, you can see those little lines on the fins. So those little lines in there, yeah, you can see them. Those little lines show that it's been a machined billet, so it is a machined billet, I should say. So a billet is a solid piece of metal that is CNC machined into the exact shape that is determined and wanted. So billets are inherently really strong because there's no casting defects in them, compared to a cast wheel, which is what the compressor wheel off the OEM one was. And you can see on this one it's pretty beaten up on the corners and that. But yeah, so pretty much billet wheel is going to mean that there's no defects in it. It's going to be much closer to the weight and dimensions that it is meant to be. And so, yeah, billet wheel means it's going to be able to spin to a higher RPM without inherent vibrations and shaking, which is really what kills turbochargers. And so this one is off eBay, but it was 600 Australian dollars, a bit more than that, so it's pretty much good quality. I looked up the seller, everyone's given it good reviews, and yeah, so you can see on the front of it, it's got the part number and serial number. That's another way to determine if your turbo's good, because turbos from China and that are going to have weird, strange numbers and that on theirs. And so yeah, that's one way of determining if your turbo's any good. Another way is to look for things like match marking and that, to show that they've actually taken care in how they've thrown it together. And one other thing is to take off the compressor and turbine housing and just look around in there to make sure there's no sand left from casting them. Because when they're cast, their molds made out of hard sand are used, and sometimes there can be residual sand in there, which you really don't want in your engine. But with this turbo here, it has been balance tested, and they included the sheet that shows its results for the balance test. So hang on, I'm gonna bear with me. So this is the sheet. So on your x-axis you've got RPM, on your y-axis you've got vibrations in some sort of measurement, doesn't say. And so the black line here is the allowable amount to what they would deem unfit for service and they wouldn't be able to sell. And the green line is what mine's been tested to and what mine's shown in its vibrations at a certain RPM. So mine's well within the boundaries. And so vibrations are really what kill a turbocharger, because they're going to rattle it around until pretty much either bolts fall off or it just shatters wheels, and that's really what's going to go inside the engine, what's going to do all the damage and ruin everything for everyone. Okay, so with this turbo that was balance tested, you can tell it has been balance tested because on the front of the compressor wheel, if it'll focus, you can see there's these little nicks there and there where it's been ground by a little wheel of some kind, probably a handheld engraver or something. But so that's actually been ground by a person, a man or a woman. Sorry, I don't want to assume genders here. It's 2020. So whoever spun this turbocharger up and did this test would have seen the vibrations that was shown on the graph, and then he would have, he or she, sorry, would have taken out their tool and they would have ground down the little bits on the compressor nut there, and that would have evened out the vibrations which it went under the certain RPM, and would have made it allowable within the range. So you can see there is the actual grinding marks on the compressor nut on this turbo, the good one. So we're going to have a quick look at my eBay turbocharger I've bought. So this one was $177 off eBay, 177 Australian dollars. Now this one has been balance tested. You can tell because if I zoom in on the front nut here, there you go, it's focused. You can see on his here, there is the grinding mark there. So this one has been tested to, I don't know what RPM, but it means it has been tested. So it leads me to believe that I will use this turbo and I will be trustworthy of it. Because with the other turbo that's in the car now, and I'll go and see if I can get a bit of video of that, there's no grinding marks in that at all. So that means that's literally just come straight out of the casting, straight out of the assembly line in China, straight in a box, straight to my door. Another thing that people steer away from eBay turbochargers for is because they're usually journal bearing turbochargers. So with turbochargers you have either ball bearing or journal bearing. A ball bearing turbocharger will spool up way faster than a journal bearing turbo because there's much less rotating resistance in the actual bearing type itself. A journal bearing turbo requires a constant flow of oil to suspend the actual journal and allow it to create the frictionless movement for the actual turbocharger spindle. So that is another reason why people don't like eBay turbochargers, because they are journal bearing and they take longer to spool and they're not as good as a Garrett Turbo or a home brand turbo, you know. But yeah, I mean, for instance, the turbo that's on my car now, hang on, I'll go and get some video of that. Okay, so I've taken the intake pipe with the filter off the Hilux so I can show you the compressor side of the turbo that I've had on it. So this is a Chinese knockoff of a Garrett 3076 turbocharger. It says on the front top up here, you can see it says serial number, model number, and just turbocharger, so you can tell it's pretty universal, you know. But anyway, down in here where the actual blade is, you can see on the front nut there's no marks on it at all. So that means this one has never been balance tested in its life. And even due to that, like, I've run this thing for 20,000 Ks. There's no shaft play in it at all. It spins like a dream. Like, it's literally almost like it was ball bearing. No, it's not. But it spins very well for one that's seen 20,000 Ks and was 200 Australian dollars off eBay. The only problems I've had with this one, you can see the black down in here. It's not a huge problem, I've never noticed it, but that means that the seals inside of it are leaking. So that means just a little bit of residual oil is going to get shot into your intake, and, you know, lubricate your piston rings, it actually does a good job. But that, and yeah, the only other problem I've had with it was the nuts connecting it to my manifold fell off because I didn't use Loctite, because I was a genius. But yeah, I've had this one on the car for more than 2 years now. Yeah, it's seen more than 20,000 Ks, I'd say. I hammer on it all the time. It makes full boost, 8 PSI. Nothing fancy, but I mean, it spools hell hard. Spools good. And yeah, it's amazingly good. And this is the main reason why I've decided to keep using eBay turbochargers, because of this good luck I've had with them. So that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to say about eBay turbochargers. So yeah, I'll just go over it again real quick and try and cover it, but it's pretty much down to your own personal preference and your own feelings towards them, you know? Like, at the end of the day, yes, they're cheap. Yes, they're not necessarily as good a quality and go through as much testing as a proper branded turbo would. But at the same time, a turbo is a relatively simple, in fact, quite a simple piece of engineering. It's literally got one moving part, oh well, three moving parts that are bolted together into one part, which probably never need to come apart unless you're rebuilding one. Or with this one here, I was looking to rebuild it, but I was like, it's not going to be worth it for being able to just get one straight off eBay, throw it back on the car and have it going again. But yeah, so they're relatively cheap as long as the tolerances on it are fine, and when you buy them, you pop them apart, make sure everything's in them is all good, and do a few measurements on them. Yeah, they literally can't go wrong. Just always make sure they're oiled. So if you're eBay turboing your car for the first time and you tee off the oil pressure sensor, just crank the engine a bit and make sure oil comes out of your feed line before you put it on. And another thing is that I wouldn't run them too hot, you know. So I think with my turbo on the Hilux, it's an GT 3076, so like the one over here, it's got the oil feed, but it's also got coolant ports. Right now I haven't got the coolant lines hooked up because I just rebuilt the engine and I couldn't be bothered putting them back on, but I was running coolant lines to it. So that probably definitely helped in the life I've gotten out of it, because if you're just running oil to it, the oil does a good job at cooling, but nothing compared to if you actually have coolant lines running to it. That'll keep it overall cooler, it won't ruin your oil as much. And yeah, it's probably just better for the journals and insides of it overall. But yeah, so turbochargers, superstitious topic. It's dependent on what you feel towards it. But if you're going to buy one, and you do buy one, just check over all of the things that I've said. Look on the front for the grinding marks on it. Take it apart. Make sure it's all good. Make sure it gives it a spin. Before you put it on, just shoot some oil in it, you know, and go easy on it for a while. I won't give you like a time estimate. Like literally, I think I put mine on and started hammering straight away. But you know, just drive it around a bit, like probably, I don't know, a few kilometers, a few miles. Just let the oil cycle through it. Load it up on boost a little bit, and then yeah, you should be good. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on the topic of eBay turbos. So yeah, a lot of talking. Sorry, my videos are usually a bit more hands-on. You see a bit more work and stuff, but yeah, hope this helps out, and I hope this will lead you to deciding on if you're going to buy eBay turbo or not. Because at the end of the day, an eBay turbo is probably the cheapest way you can have fun with a car, period.